Hey guys, Dave and Len here. Welcome to Wargame Chat. Today we're going to talk about what reviews we actually read and where we get our reviews from and stuff. And like if I'm thinking about buying a game, what I'm looking for in a review before I buy the game. The places I get most of my reviews from currently is either I do a search on YouTube or generic Google search, or best of all, I go to Board Game Geek and I'll look at the ratings, but I completely ignore the numeric values on the ratings and instead look at the comments that the people leave. And I don't take anything at heart if it's just a single comment, because you'll get stuff like someone will say, oh, this game sucks because it has square counters, cardboard counters instead of plastic playing pieces, so they rate it a 1, which is ridiculous. Of course it's got cardboard counters. That's how war games are. But I look for like patterns, and if I see like 3 people saying this is wrong with the game, then I start to believe it probably is something that's a problem. Or if I see many people saying this is a good part of the game, I kind of know that probably is something that's a good aspect of the game. And I'm looking in these comments to see if it's a playable game that where I'm not going to have to put in a 3-week investment to learn the rules or something. Because the kind of game I do not want would be something that has like a 60-page rule book, a 40-page playbook, and after you read the 100 pages, you still can't figure out how to play the damn game. So you have to go and watch all these playthroughs and stuff and assume the people who did the playthroughs actually know what they're doing and stuff. So that's the kind of game I'm trying to avoid. As far as other places, I got reviews back in the old games, old days. I would get them from Aries Magazine, and I didn't actually like the reviews that were in there. I thought that the reviews were kind of sarcastic, and I thought they were unfair at times too, like really unfair in some cases. And what's that magazine I bought a whole bunch from you with all the reviews in it?
Fire and Movement.
Yeah, that one. Some of the reviews in there were seemed fair. Actually, most of them seemed fair. There were a few that were just absolute garbage, though. Like he had a game, and someone reviewed it, and the first sentence in the review, he said, I did not play the game, but then he writes a review of it. Well, you can't review a game you haven't played, period. You can't pass judgment on a game unless you've played it, but yeah, those are the main places I get reviews from. What about you, Len?
Okay, in the old past, before there was an internet, there were magazines, and the most noted one for game reviews called Panzerfaust magazine. It was like a little digest-like thing, size 1, and it was published by Don Laurie, who also published games. And it actually had a certain Gary Gygax would do some reviews.
And you said that his reviews were pretty fair too, right?
Yeah, they were fun to read. Mm. So he changed it at some point to Campaign magazine because some distributors said it'd be more acceptable in the hobby stores. And it was about the same, except Gary got interested in this Dungeons and Dragons nonsense. A passing fad that no one has ever heard of.
Yeah, it made him some millions, though, so that kind of worked out in his favor.
Okay. And it was on the same style. And one thing I also remember from Panzerfaust Campaign is sometimes they analyze things like armored warfare, the dynamics. Because there's one guy, Lauren Bird, who had multiple articles about anti-tank, the velocity of anti-tank guns, how to determine like the armor effects and so on and so forth. Which, if you were into tanks, was probably good. You want to know. The next magazine was a slick one called Fire and Movement, and that one we forgot to mention with Campaign on Panzerfaust is that Don Laurie at a certain point moved to the West Coast and became a sports writer. So Fire and Movement stepped into the void, and it tried in various degrees, and the problem was that the publishing schedule was so slow that oftentimes you would buy the game and played it, and then you start disagreeing with the reviewer. So at a certain point, you didn't bother. At a certain point, I just ran out my subscription of Fire and Movement. It wasn't worth buying anymore. So
I remember like Avalon Hill General. I wouldn't call these reviews they had in there because the Avalon Hill General is just a house organ for Avalon Hill, but I can't remember what game it was, but the authors of the game wrote an article about their own game, and they said at the beginning, well, this is kind of a biased article because we're the authors of the game. And yes, it was biased, and of course, if you read the article, you would think their game was the greatest game ever made. Can't remember what game it was, but the game actually was okay, but it wasn't nearly as good as the authors were saying it was.
yeah. Another magazine that I'm biased with this one is called Paper Wars. They were doing reviews. I wrote a few reviews. Publisher, the editor just loved me because,
What was his name, the editor? I can't remember.
I wish I could remember. I'll have to look it up. This is off the top of the head. But he's a real cool, real good guy. And
was it John Kranz?
No.
Oh, okay.
I have to look it up and.
Because I think he works for Compass Games. So, Paper Wars is that?
Well, they were bought by Compass Games.
Yeah. So I was just wondering if he's affiliated with the magazine too, because I know he's affiliated with all the board games.
He's doing book reviews. I think either Strategy and Tactics or World War II.
Oh, he is. That's cool.
Yeah, and he's a very good reviewer. So. One thing I liked about his policy, he wanted people who wanted to play the games. And I remember I told him, my only limit was no tactical air combat games, because I already got one, and naturally I'd be biased against anybody else. I always was very suspicious when Richard Berg would review any Civil War games or any Napoleonic games, because he had games on the subject.
What magazine did he? I know he did reviews, but what magazine was it for? Was it for Paper Wars? Was Berg doing them for that, or?
Well, he did a few. He did a few for Fire and Movement, and he also had his Richard Berg's newsletter. So that's where he was doing most of the reviews.
Gotcha.
So it's like, he was lucky. I was the only person in America who knew anything about the French Civil Wars in the 16th century. And of course, I got very excited about it, so I could review that one with great gusto.
Yeah, I read in several I've never met Richard Berg, but I've read in several places some people found him difficult to deal with, to say the least.
One thing that I only had one problem with one review I wrote. It was on the Dark and Bloody Ground. It was the little-known American war against the Indian Coalition in Ohio. And I really loved the game, and I was enthusiastic. The game designer wrote in that I was too negative.
Really?
And I'm looking at it saying, wait a minute, how can I... Well, I asked him, what would you recommend I change on this? And, he just had a few less jokes in it, and it probably would do the trick. And I, rewrote it, and,
Oh, he didn't like your sense of humor?
Yeah, I just thought that maybe people might not like it, so...
Do you remember, will you reveal his name, or is it secret?
What?
The author's name, or is it secret?
The game reviewer?
Yeah.
The game designer?
Yeah.
I don't feel like revealing it.
All right, no
Outside
problem.
of the fact, right now I can't remember it.
Oh, okay. All right, I was just curious. No big deal.
I thought that maybe the problem is that I shouldn't get any more games in which I really like. So,
yeah, it's kind of weird. They show the review to. Was this with Paper Wars or?
Yeah, with Paper Wars.
Yeah, so I mean, is it really a review then? If the guy writes the review and then you send it to the author of the game and say, "We want your approval before we publish the review." That's really not a review then. If they're going to say, "Well, change this, this, and this," it's not a review.
I'd say normally I'd agree with you, especially if we're talking about movies or books. But sometimes the war games are a more complex subject. and that and maybe it's just a matter of maybe the reviewer didn't understand certain aspects, and you can go back and look at it.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, like if you misunderstood, somebody says no, it's actually like this, but then you got to wonder. Well, if you misunderstood it, does that mean everyone who plays this game is also going to understand it, which is probably is the case? So then it is a problem, and it is something you should point out. But that's why I no longer go to companies and request games for them to send the review, because I don't like listening to their complaints when I review it, and I point out the bad parts. They like it when I point out the good parts, but if I point out the bad parts, then they complain. Not all of them. Some of them don't complain at all. Some of them do, but that's why I no longer request people to send me games for review. Some people just say, hey, do you want this game to review? And I say, yeah, but it's going to be an honest review, so you need to know that before you send the game. And then I do review it. But in most cases, I just buy these games on my own because I don't want to deal with these publishers complaining about stuff.
Well, the thing is, I remember the old joke is any publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, there's actually a point to that, yeah.
But the problem is, this is not like, some areas. I can still remember there's one rock star who read the review of Ramones' first album, and the reviewer said, these guys can't play guitars, they can't sing, their songs are too short, they make no sense. And he said that by the end of the day, I bought the copy. So, I bought the record. I couldn't.
I didn't know you listened to the Ramones. I listened to them on occasion.
Yeah, I said that, with a review like that, how could you resist?
Yeah.
So, or like sometimes, especially I had a local theater when there were local movie theaters, would like to play all the movies that all the critics said were terrible, and he'd actually play them. That's why I saw Dune, and that was an experience. So, but with war games, you're investing a lot of money, so maybe it maybe is worthwhile to have the designer look over your reviews in case there's anything you don't understand. So.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah.
I won't buy any of these expensive games unless I know in advance that it's going to be a decent game, because games have gotten so expensive now. It's like anything new that you want is between $60 and $90. So I want to hear from someone what the game was like before I invest $60 to $90 in it, and I want to at least get an idea how it's played and stuff. Because some games I just don't like. So if it's a game I'm just not going to like, I need to know that so I don't buy it.
I was thinking with Compass Games, since they're now using Paper Wars more as a house magazine, they have like replays in the magazine. They show you how a sequence of play, how it turn.
Well, that's good. Yeah, that's good.
And that sometimes gets you excited.
Yeah.
I remember
helps you learn the game too.
Yeah, I read the article about what's the one about the Spanish Civil War, and that got me interested. So that's a way of showing the product. Because, like I said, this is war games. You're spending a lot of money. You need to know if the product is decent enough to be worth the investment. With movies or books, okay, it didn't work out. I'm only of course nowadays I'm only out $5, $10, whatever. So, all right.
All right, guys, that's all we have for this time. We'll have a new Wargame Chat for you in about 2 weeks. We're both going to conventions next week, and I'm going to Naval Wars. And where are you going again?
WindyCon. It's a science fiction convention.
Gotcha. All right, have a good one, guys.